Winter has a way of quieting the world. Streets slow, trees stand bare, and the air itself seems to hold its breath. Imagine a February evening long before electric lights or glowing screens, just cold stone, fading daylight, and the sound of footsteps echoing through narrow paths. In moments like this, humans have always felt something familiar, a deep ache for warmth, for connection, for meaning in the silence. Love, in its rawest form, has never been loud. It whispers in the dark seasons, when survival feels uncertain and time feels heavy. And it is in this stillness, not in roses or poetry, that the story of Valentine's Day truly begins. Today, February 14th arrives wrapped in certainty. We are told what it means, how to celebrate it, what to buy, and how to feel. But pause for a moment and ask yourself, why this day? Why in the heart of winter when the world is stripped bare? Why has love, the most powerful human emotion, been assigned a date as if it could be contained by a calendar? Traditions often feel timeless, but most are carefully layered illusions, shaped by centuries of forgetting. What we call romance today may be only the final mask placed over something far older, stranger, and more unsettling. Long before hearts were drawn and names were signed, this time of year carried a different weight. It was not about couples or devotion between two people. It was about fear and hope, about the fragile line between life and death. Ancient communities believed that winter loosened the boundaries of the world, that unseen forces moved more freely when the earth was cold and quiet. Love, then, was not a soft emotion. It was a force of survival, tied to fertility, protection, and renewal. The rituals of this season were not gentle gestures. They were acts meant to hold the world together just a little longer. Think about how often love has been used as a shield against fear. We celebrate it when times are hard, when days are short, when the future feels uncertain. That is no accident. Early societies understood something we often forget, that emotion and belief shape reality. They believed certain days held power, moments when actions mattered more, when rituals could influence fate itself. February was not a month of romance. It was a threshold, a turning point. And love, in that context, was never private. It belonged to the community, the land, and the gods they believed watched over them. Over time, stories soften. Sharp edges are smoothed, meanings simplified, and uncomfortable truths quietly buried. The rituals once tied to blood, sacrifice, and survival slowly transformed as civilizations changed, merged, and rewrote themselves. Names were altered. Intentions were reframed. What began as an act of communal protection would eventually be retold as a celebration of affection. But echoes remain. Hidden beneath the sweetness of modern Valentine's Day is the memory of something ancient, something powerful enough to survive centuries of reinvention. At the very root of this story lies a forgotten ritual, one born not from romance, but from urgency. A ceremony meant to awaken life during the dead of winter, to restore balance when nature seemed most vulnerable. It was loud, chaotic, and deeply human. And although its name has faded from popular memory, its spirit still lingers every February. To understand Valentine's Day, we must step back into that world, into an ancient society standing at the edge of winter, calling out for renewal. This is where our journey truly begins. Step carefully now, because the world we are entering does not resemble the one we know. Picture a city of stone and smoke, alive with footsteps, voices, and belief, a place where survival depended not on sentiment, but on harmony with forces unseen. In ancient Rome, love was not something whispered between two people. It was something demanded by the season. February was a dangerous month, suspended between death and rebirth, when illness spread easily and crops still slept beneath frozen soil. To do nothing during this time felt like surrender, so the people acted, not out of cruelty or chaos, but out of hope that life could be persuaded to return. At the heart of this moment stood a festival unlike anything we associate with love today. It was called Lupercalia. It did not celebrate romance, but fertility, protection, and the raw instinct to endure. The Romans believed the future depended on balance, between men and women, land and labor, order and nature. Rituals were designed to awaken the body and the earth at the same time. This was not reckless celebration. It was cultural responsibility. In a world without modern medicine or certainty, rituals like these were survival strategies, binding communities together against the quiet threat of extinction. The rituals themselves were striking, even unsettling to modern eyes, but they carried meaning. Participants moved through the city in deliberate motion, laughter mixing with seriousness, chants blending with belief. Touch was symbolic, not romantic, thought to carry vitality, to pass life from one body to another. Young people gathered, names drawn by chance, not by choice, forming temporary bonds shaped by fate rather than desire. These pairings were not promises of love, but acknowledgments of uncertainty. In a world ruled by seasons, chance was not feared. It was trusted as the voice of the gods. What feels wild to us felt necessary to them. The Romans understood something deeply human, that fear of death sharpens the need for connection. Winter reminded them how fragile life could be. Lupercalia confronted that fear directly, transforming it into movement, ritual, and shared experience. There was no expectation of forever, no promise of romance as we define it now. There was only the present moment and the belief that participation mattered. Love, here, was not emotional fulfillment. It was an act of defiance against silence, decay, and the passing of time. And yet, something familiar hides within this ancient scene. Pairing, hope, the belief that connection, however brief, could influence the future. These ideas did not vanish when rituals faded. They evolved. As centuries passed, the noise of Lupercalia softened, its meaning reshaped by new beliefs, new stories, and new moral boundaries. What once belonged to the streets and seasons would eventually be carried into quieter spaces, chapels, legends, and names remembered more easily than the rituals that came before them. Something wild was being prepared for transformation. Soon, a figure will emerge, one remembered not for chaos, but for devotion. A name that history would preserve while the older rituals slipped into shadow. His story would offer a gentler interpretation of love, one rooted in sacrifice rather than survival. But the contrast remains impossible to ignore. How did a festival born from fear, chance, and the urgency of life become a symbol of sacred affection? How did something so wild transform into something sacred? History rarely offers a single face to believe in. When we search for Saint Valentine, we do not find one clear figure standing apart from the past, but several shadows overlapping. Different men, different moments, all carrying the same name. Time has blended them together, smoothing contradictions into legend. But within those overlapping stories, one presence feels quieter, closer, less myth, more human. A priest living under an empire that valued strength above tenderness, order above affection. In this chapter, the noise of ritual fades, and what remains is a single life shaped by choice, conscience, and cost. Under Emperor Claudius II, Rome demanded loyalty above all else. The empire was at war, and soldiers were expected to belong fully to the state. Love, marriage, and family were seen as distractions, ties that weakened resolve. According to legend, marriages were restricted, perhaps even forbidden, for young men meant to fight. It was a practical decision, made without cruelty, but heavy with consequence. And somewhere within that rigid order stood a priest who believed love was not a weakness, but a vow worth defending. Quietly, away from public eyes, he chose to act. The ceremonies were small, no crowds, no celebration, just whispered promises exchanged in hidden rooms, hands held tightly as if the moment itself might vanish. These were not grand rebellions, they were acts of faith. To the couples, the priest offered more than marriage. He offered dignity in a world that had little room for it. Each ceremony carried risk. Each vow was a quiet defiance. Love here was no longer ritual or survival strategy. It had become moral courage, choosing connection even when obedience would have been safer. Eventually, silence gave way to consequence. The priest was arrested, separated from the world he had quietly served. Prison was not a place of violence here, but of waiting. Stone walls, narrow light, time stretching endlessly forward. In that stillness, love took on a different shape. Letters, according to legend, were written. Words offered when touch was no longer possible. One note, signed simply, would echo across centuries. From your Valentine. Whether it truly existed matters less than why it endured. People needed a voice to carry love through separation, fear, and loss. This is how stories survive, not through certainty, but through meaning. The priest's death, like many martyrdoms, was absorbed into memory rather than fully recorded. Facts blurred, symbols sharpened. Love, once loud and communal in the streets, became personal and sacred. The fear-driven rituals of winter were no longer needed in the same way. In their place stood a story of sacrifice, one person choosing love over law, compassion over command. The wildness of the old world softened, reshaped into something that could be carried forward without fear. As Christianity spread, it did not erase what came before. It absorbed it. Old festivals were given new meanings. Ancient fears were answered with faith. The hunger for connection remained, but it was reframed through story rather than ritual. Valentine's name survived because it offered continuity, a bridge between the old world and the new. And like all enduring traditions, the truth was not discarded. It was transformed. What began as survival became sacrifice, and what was once feared became sacred. This is how history moves forward, not by forgetting, but by retelling. Centuries pass, and the world changes its language for love. In the Middle Ages, the noise of empire has faded, replaced by stone halls, long roads, and slow seasons. Love begins to live in words more than actions. Poets and troubadours reshape it into something distant and ideal. Courtly love, unattainable love, love defined by longing rather than possession. February becomes a symbolic turning point again, believed to mark the moment when birds choose their mates. Love is no longer a ritual of survival or a quiet act of defiance. It becomes a story people tell themselves about devotion, patience, and yearning across distance. Handwritten letters become the vessels of this new love. Ink carries emotion where bodies cannot. Words travel across borders, wars, and time itself. To write was to wait, to place your heart in the hands of uncertainty. These letters did not promise fulfillment, they promised remembrance. Love learned how to survive separation. In this era, Valentine's Day quietly aligns itself with expression rather than action. Not because love weakened, but because the world expanded. Distance became a defining human experience, and love adapted by learning how to endure absence without disappearing. Then the world accelerates. Printing presses hum, cities swell, industry reshapes daily life, and Valentine's Day is pulled into motion with everything else. What was once rare and handwritten becomes reproducible. Cards replace letters. Symbols replace sentences. By the 19th century, love becomes something that can be purchased, packaged, and delivered on schedule. Critics will later call this corruption, but the truth is quieter. People were not buying love. They were buying a way to express it in a world that was moving too fast to slow down. The modern era scatters Valentine's Day across the globe, and it changes again. In some places it remains romantic. In others it becomes playful, symbolic, or communal. Chocolates are exchanged, notes are anonymous. Love is celebrated between friends, families, even strangers. The holiday adapts to culture because love itself has never belonged to one form. It reflects the needs of the people who carry it. No single meaning survives intact, and yet, the day itself does. There will always be criticism, that Valentine's Day is artificial, that it has been emptied by commerce. And those critiques are not wrong, but they are incomplete. Humans have always needed moments to pause and acknowledge connection. Rituals change because the need does not. Beneath every card, every gift, every awkward confession, lies the same impulse that stirred ancient fires and prison letters alike. The desire to be seen, chosen, remembered. Even when imperfect, the gesture matters. Valentine's Day survives because love survives. Not as a product, not as a rule, not as a single story, but as a constant human response to time, fear, and separation. It has worn many faces: ritual, rebellion, poetry, sacrifice, commerce. None of them define it completely. Together, they explain why it refuses to disappear. When winter returns, when silence grows, humans still reach outward. And somewhere between memory and hope, love answers.